All right, welcome to Get Serious. Have another pretty exciting story today. I know there have been a few podcasts over the past week that I was discussing that messy title deal we were involved in um, out in East Texas, and the back and forth over 8 months dealing with crazy airship situations, like 100 years plus of family history. We thought the seller got cold feet at literally the closing day last week, and we were prepping. Okay, do we potentially pursue this legally? How do we loop him back in here? And he did come back. He just had some hospitalization, coincidentally, at that point in time, and we actually just closed on the property earlier this week, 4 days ago, and we already had our broker out taking some drone photos, getting the listing prepped here. And just to give you, the down low, our all-in costs were roughly 118 grand or so. And we were planning to list at just under 260,000. And we thought that was even priced a little bit below market. And generally, we won't price above market or even at market unless we have like a very superior property, which is rarely the case. What most people consider superior is usually not superior, or if anything, you should be more conservative on what you consider to be superior properties. But that's another topic in and of itself. So that was our game plan there. And interestingly, just yesterday, our land investor partner on the deal had emailed me and said he heard from one of the family members of the seller, a guy in his face who apparently had some connection to the property and wanted to see if we might be able to work out a deal with him. So obviously that's kind of intriguing. He literally just purchased it. Let's see, especially in a tough market. Willing to entertain anything to potentially consider there. I don't know what his numbers are. Our land investor partner just passed it off to us. Obviously, we're the title holder, and generally, I'm not talking with buyers, nor am I involved with seller conversations in almost any case as well here. So we tend to work with brokers and pretty much every property that we work with. And, we didn't pass this lead off to our broker just because it was so connected to the seller's family and we literally just closed on it. I at least wanted to entertain the conversation to see what we could do. And then, we could cut our broker in based on the work that she had done on the property if we were able to figure out a deal. So I just went ahead and called that guy quickly again, also speed to lead too, right? So not letting it sit around. And again, kind of the strategy is when you reach out to folks, just kind of start hearing them out, letting them talk, listen, and figure out what room there is to potentially work with. So when I got this guy on the phone, and he lives in the area near the property, and he's like, I really can't believe that this property was sold. It's like deep family history here. If I would have known. I think they were cousins. I'm not positive from the communication, but some family relation. I would have reached out to my cousin, tried to work something out. But honestly, even if he had done that, I'm not sure they would have been able to figure it out. Like, we put in so much work, especially I have to credit our land investor partner too on this. I mean, genealogy charts and just again like 100 years plus of history. Like there was probably 3 or 4 times during this whole process that I was just ready to write this property off. I didn't think it was going to be able to close. It was just at death's door so many times. And so even if another family member had come into this, I'm really not confident they would have had kind of the perseverance and focus in order to figure out how to actually transfer the property. Like it was such a and we use like the most specialized title, like the one Logan Fulmer uses, First Option in Texas to even sort this out. Like it took us 3 different title companies, like two title companies locally. They just gave up on it and said, we can't underwrite this deal. And it took us, the 3rd title company to actually figure it out, and it still took them months. And honestly, I was pretty disappointed by their performance with it. There were just a lot of errors and mistakes along the way and communication issues, but that's besides the point. Either way, like that this family member, cousin, whatever, he could have said, yeah, I could have come in there, but more than likely he would not have been able to close on the property. Like it was a disaster of a title situation. And that's putting it lightly. But nevertheless, like, hey, we came in, we solved it, we just took title, and he was mentioning, and I could tell talking with him, African American ethnicity. And again, I had no idea. Like, I don't talk to the sellers in pretty much any case. And he's just like, hey, this property has been in our family since slavery times, and it used to be part of a plantation. We took it over after a certain point in time. It's like I can understand that from why that property would have some attachment to family that's had it literally close to 200 some odd years, or at least living in the vicinity, or some type of ownership associated with it. Who am I to argue about any emotional attachment that anybody has with it? But like that one is certainly understood. I'm again just kind of sitting there silent again as well. Like let people tell their story. And so he's like, hey, I'd love to figure out if we can work out a deal before this thing hits the market here. I'd love to keep it in our family. I said, I certainly can empathize and can understand your story here. And like, again, I know your family member, like he chose to work with us. It ultimately was up to him to sell the property. We worked really, really hard on this for several months to solve it. It is closed. We have title on the property. We're planning to market this. Like we think we're even underpricing the market at, $260K, just under $7K per acre. And, the potential buyer we were talking with, he was really taken aback by that. Man, that's way higher than he thought. But then he was like, would you take $200K to do it? I could do $200K cash, keep it off the market. And I told him, and again, I had no idea how this conversation was going to go. I had an idea of what number might be potentially acceptable. It was closer to our list price that we'd be willing to do it. But that's the thing, is like we hadn't even tested the market yet. And based on all our data, I really thought that we were going to get some activity around that 260K mark. It's a pretty attractive property and price below market. There was relatively slow market, but there was enough moving recently, even post Q2 of 2025. Again, the fact that we funded the property should speak for itself. And we had a lot of downside protection. And so, it would have been a different story if we had the property sitting for, even a few weeks, a month, 2 months, what have you, and like it wasn't getting that much activity. Then it's like, 200K, it's not, great, but it's still, solid, profitable exit, especially a cash deal. We could do it. But, I told him like that's just not something we're willing to entertain at the moment, especially without, hitting the market here and given all the time and effort we put into this. But hey, you have my number, I have yours. If you want to, I don't know, you want to reach out to some other family members, anybody else you want to talk to, if you're able to come up more than that. But again, like we're planning to like market this the following day. And, we had ended the conversation there. I mean, it was friendly tone. The guy was a professional. And then I gave him a couple hours because I wanted to see, you gotta let people sit sometimes and let some ideas cook and simmer. Because I wanted to see if he was going to come back and potentially anchor himself up higher. But I had gone back to our land investor partner. It's like, if he could get up to 230 and close within a month cash, like that would be a great exit for us. Like that's a near double. It's meeting in the middle here. And so if I don't hear from him, within the next couple hours and like re-anchor himself, and this was already late afternoon, so around 6 p.m. Eastern, maybe 5:30 Central rather. I texted the potential buyer again, and let me just read it off because it performed well here. So it's like, hi, Mr. So-and-so, it's Chris. We spoke about the property. Again, I'm keeping the actual address and names private here for confidentiality. And it was like, discussing with my partners, we are understanding of the meaning/history the property has for you and your family, and would love for you to come away with it. If you're able to meet us in the middle at 230K cash, 30-day close, we're willing to sign a contract before it hits the market. We can give you until noon CST tomorrow so you can sleep on it and make any calls you may want to. After that, we will begin marketing it aggressively, given how long it took for us to purchase the parcel. No worries if it doesn't work for you, just wanted to give you the option and feel free to ring me. I also duplicated that text over to his email just for increased visibility there. And then I just let it sit. And I didn't hear anything back last night, but then earlier today, again, you give people a chance to sleep on something. That's usually a good option when you can. But there's a ticking time bomb here, and we presented the opportunity, and again, figure out like that. This is always the key thing. What are the emotional stakes? Like what does your counterparty really want out of the deal? Like that is what you want to figure out within a negotiation here. Like it really centered in, hey, like this is your family history, understanding of that. Here's an option. Like we're not going to get top dollar for it, but we'll still get a good deal if you want to come in by this time. Otherwise, like we're going to hit the market. So just presenting them with a decent level of urgency here. It's not like it needs to come up with the cash tomorrow, but at least to go under contract. And we're willing to sign. But like I gave him my word, you come up to this number, I'll sign. And then I heard from him at about 8:30 Central this morning, a.m. And he really appreciated the text. Like, yeah, I appreciate you chatting with your partners and discussing and giving me the option here. It's like it hit him on that emotional level and building that rapport there. And then he tried to hey, can we do 225K? But I held firm like, nah, 230, like that's the lowest we're willing to consider at the moment, because again, like we think we're pricing it already below market here. And again, we haven't even listed it yet. Yeah, like it's a 5K difference. Like I figured, yeah, this like, okay, he's basically there. And so then I just, we're going to hold firm at 230, and then was just quiet, right? Like that's another key thing. Is like, let silence do the talking oftentimes on conversations, because, you have a bat now, right? I come in, like if I had to walk from this deal, like it's fine. Still move forward with this deal in a different direction, because I still think it was going to perform well. And the guy jumped on it right away. He's like, okay, 230, great. And I told him, you come up to 230, I will sign the contract today. It's like, all right, let's do it. I'm ready to sign. Then we hashed out a couple other items, like trying to sort out the title company to use their I mean, I think he runs a development company potentially. I'm not positive, but he wants to buy it with his LLC. And we just, okay, put $1,000 down, and by the way, like I'd love to take your word for it, but like cash purchase, we're going to need proof of funds. I can give you 3 days to show the title company that you have proof of funds here. And, can we close the day before Labor Day? Like roughly a month. And if you want to close even quicker, great. But, really basic setup. And, he agreed to all of that. That's always the kicker, right? Like we'll see what once we sign this contract that he comes up with the POF, which is critical here. But I don't think he would have made this offer or anything if he's not able to deliver. I'd be very surprised by that. That's not the vibe that I was picking up. At the same time, like props for him too. Like there's not many people in this country that just have 230K of liquidity just sitting around here. So he had it available to act on it. And then I immediately called our broker after, and just we found a buyer here. And again, you want to reward people who are working for you. Like we had already signed, listing agreement earlier this week. She'd done, drone photos, had been, working with us during this process, site visits, etc. 6% listing agreement, able to split if a buyer's agent came in. But effectively we're serving as our own buyer's agents. And we lined it up. We found this family buyer, like we're all going to get paid in a month here. Like, can we do the 3%? We'll pay you that. And she readily agreed, and it's helping prep our contract for the buyer. as well, and kind of managing the title company process too. You know, everybody's bottom line is going to look solid, and like net of all final closing costs on the deal, like there'll probably be about 100K in net profit on the deal, split 50-50. 50K of profit after 8 months of work, but not that the capital wasn't sitting out the door for that long. So especially again in this market, tough to find results like that. Really hard to get 30-day closes from the time you purchase. It's super rare, but we were able to figure it out. So it's like literally been 1 week since we thought, hey, we were potentially going to have to explore legal options against the seller for not performing. And, we were still sitting like 5K out on the deal. Like it would have hurt. So potential like 5K loss now to, potential 50K net profit within, the course of a week, or at least agreeing to contract there. So, things can turn around quickly if you're ready and willing to act. So hopefully you guys found this story to be informative and exciting to hear. I'll probably be writing about this one in a newsletter. Pretty pumped the way that it has turned out so far, right? The money's not in our bank account yet. Never count your chickens before they hatch, but it's looking good. So with that in mind, seriousland.capital for any of your funding needs. Land Daily Diligence Facebook group for zero cost review of your land deals, and landpricer.ai for the most reliable land funding tool in the market. I've been back and forth with my engineering team on kind of final MVP fixes all last night. We are getting very close there before this unconference demo is what we were gunning for. Subscribe and share, everybody. Talk to you next time. Bye.